Good morning, good people. Today is Monday, November 3rd. The month is flying by already. Monday, November 3rd. Boy, it seemed like yesterday was Friday, but no, yesterday was Sunday, and before that was Saturday. 3 days ago was Friday. But here we are, Monday, and this is day one of week one of our neuroscience oriented approach to success. For the next 4 weeks, the next 28 days, we're going to go through this one step at a time. If I don't spill coffee, too much coffee on my desk water, that is. Okay, so we're going to go through it one day at a time, week one, day one. So before we do that, let's just do a check-in. So this is the first Monday after daylight savings time is over. So it's lighter outside for a while, but the days keep getting shorter and cooler and colder. And one day I'll have to wear one of these shirts for the whole day, as opposed to it gets too hot. It gets to be 80 something. Here now it starts out in the 60s and gets into the 80s, and then it's whatever. So today, big day for me in terms of need to do our new food delivery program with New Hope Church, then off to the senior center, and a lot of stops in between. And of course, you never know what's going to go wrong on Mondays. But here we are, day one, week one, neuroscience oriented approach to success. So again, before we get into that, let's do some of our overview thing. Our theme of today, our Brain Smart program. When I say our, I don't mean the hour or it takes 1 hour. I mean, it's our Brain Smart program. And the TED Talk for today is Dr. Daniel Amen, the leader in brain scan I don't know if it's actual therapy or diagnostics. He is the man. Let me say, Daniel Amen. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Advice from an 80-year-old. Advice, okay, from an 80-year-old. Take charge of your attitude. Don't let someone else choose it for you. Right, take charge of your attitude. Don't let someone else do it for you. Or as we say here, when we're talking about the third leg of the table, if you can't control your emotions, don't worry, somebody else will, and they'll probably take you out of the game. Don't let that happen. Control your emotions. Breathe. Okay, so let's see what Seth Godin has to say today. I got your back. I've got your back. This is not a promise to be made lightly. It's not, I've got your back until it becomes difficult or inconvenient. It puts us on the hook without exception. This is a powerful promise, a commitment that can change the life of both parties. Don't do it lightly, but do it. It's worth it. Yeah, you know what? I think that's great advice. When you go into relationships, that might be a good thing to ponder. Would I say to this person, I've got your back, hell or high water, till the wheels fall off? I'm your road dog. I'll be your huckleberry. Do we say that? That would be the question when we're meeting somebody new person. Would we say, was that the kind of person we'd say, I've got your back? too. Wouldn't that be great if everyone understood that's the goal. I've got your back, I've got his back, he's got my back, she's got my back, I've got her back. Wouldn't that be a good thing? Good morning, what not a bevy. And my hunch is, if we go back to the early Christians, if we look into a place that I don't really like looking, which is non-red letter, non-gospel, if we look into Acts, I think there's a description of the early communities, and we can see that everybody there had everyone else's back. It wasn't a transaction, it was a relationship. So what's happening in Fort Jack's what not a bevy? Okay, so we've got living life and loving life. Okay. Is that an incantation or a affirmation? Okay, let's talk about week 1, day 1, as I'm waiting for what not a bevy to tell me. Incantation or affirmation? Okay, so let's talk about big picture. What is this all about? Why should you care? How do we take this heavy book? Why do we do that? And go through it month after month after month after month, or every 48 weeks. Why do we do it? Why do we do it 13 times a year? Going on 10 years. Ugh. Affirmation incantation. Affirmative incantation. Aha. I think she's too clever by half. Is it school, work, and art? Living life and loving life. Is that an incantation or an affirmation? Tony Robbins says you have to use incantations are like a spell, a magical spell, that you will it into you. Where an affirmation is much, 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 much weaker. It's more of a, oh yeah, life's great. An observation. We're like, okay, so what are we after here? What are we doing? What is the purpose for doing this thing? Well, quite simply, it's just to answer 2 questions. 2 questions. Who knows the questions? What are the questions? What not a bevy? What are the questions? What are the questions, old man? I don't know the questions. What are the questions? Who am I? Right. Who am I? And why do I behave the way I do? Right. And we're talking about this from a neuroscience, more of a biology question. It's not a metaphysical question. It's not a spiritual question. It's not a psychological question. It's a hard reality question. Who am I? And we can say I'm a collection of 100 trillion cells and 10 times that number of bacteria. We could say that. And that kind of begs the question, well, how many of these cells know who I am? None. How many of the cells care who I am? No, none. Are we the result of our cells? Well, yeah, we kind of are. You know, if we are paralyzed, let's say, we're very different than if we are an athlete. So you say, who am I? To somebody who's paralyzed, it's a different answer than if you say that to somebody who's an athlete. They are a physically different thing. We're looking at, though, not just all the cells in our body and how they work together, but our focus is on the brain and what emanates therefrom. Meaning we start with the brain and then we deal with the body. start with the brain, we deal with the emotions, etc. We don't deal with them independent of one another. So who am I? And our focus is on the 13.8 billion neurons in our brains. Is that right? No, 86 billion neurons. I was thinking about how old is the universe? The 86 billion neurons in our brain and the 10,000 connections, and what is in those neurons and connections, and how do they work? And you might say, well, why do we care about that? And the answer is because if we know who we are, in other words, we know how our brain works, then we have the ability to dial in who we need to be right now. And that takes work. You don't just give somebody a hammer and say, go make a building, go build a cabin. They have to learn how to use the hammer and a whole bunch of other tools. So here our goal is simple. We want to answer two questions. Who am I and why do I behave the way I do? So we break that question up into 4 weeks. The first week is the overview and orientation. The second week is the stuff we care about with our brain. Neurons, neurotransmitters, reticular activating system. That's about all we can do in a week. Those 3 things, but that's good enough to give us an idea of how we can use this thing to get where we are, where we want to be. Okay. Week number 3 is the concept of, if I know who I am, I know how my brain works, and I know how other people's brain works. So how can I get people to cooperate with me? Because I can't do it alone. I can't make it alone. Would you agree with that, Watanabe? Have you learned that in life yet? That it's your network, is your networking. Right. And the stronger your network, the easier it is for you to move forward in this world of men and machines. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. Right. Well, correct. If you had to have one or the other, I would say who you know, because there's a lot of people. Let's say Tesla, for example. He knew a lot, but he died almost penniless in a hotel in, I think, New York. Whereas lesser people, let's say Edison, who was a big guy, also a big name, important person, or Westinghouse, people who got other people to do stuff, Carnegie, etc. So who am I? So week 3 is getting other people. Week 4 is now, okay, I'm putting it all together, moving forward on my journey, my adventure. And then, of course, we have so that's the physical, that's the here and now stuff. Then we have the eternal stuff. And on weekends, we have our G school. And really, the question there, this is the first time I'm formulating this, the question there is, do I have a transcendent soul? Do I have an eternal soul? Do I have a soul or a spirit that continues after I die? And there's a lot of evidence for it. In fact, as time goes on, there's more and more evidence that we do have a soul that continues on. And the best evidence is probably real experiences after death, what used to be called near-death experiences, but this is the person is dead and we brought them back, as opposed to they were near dead. And the people who have had real experiences after death, REDs, talk about things that they should have no ability to talk about because they had no brain activity while these things were occurring. So how can you come back and have thoughts about what happened in this intervening period when you were dead, when you had no brain waves? How can you have an experience of something that requires brain waves when you didn't have any brain waves? Or, the very special case is real experiences after death of people who are born blind and talk about seeing. People who don't have images of things in their brains talking about things that they saw while they were dead. So it's not conclusive, but the evidence is tipping strongly towards we do have an eternal soul. So that is the question that we focus on. The spiritual question we focus on is, do we have an eternal soul? If we don't have an eternal soul, it's pretty, the plan for life should be obvious. Hedonic hedonism. Do what you can, get the most out of this life. La vida loca. Get as much as you can now, because that's it. When it's over, it's over. Try to either do things that make you happy or do things that people will remember you for when you're gone, or some combination thereof. But have a eternal idea. Have an eternal image in your brain of what's going on here. Do I have an eternal soul or do I not? If I don't have an eternal soul, again, pretty easy. Hedonic hedonism, or think about posterity, or some combination therein. Choose, move forward. Do what you got to do to enjoy life. There's morals and things like that. They don't really matter unless it has to do with punishment. So you don't want to take advantage of people if you're going to get caught, right? If your goal is hedonism, then you want to get as much pleasure as you can. You don't really need to care about other people unless it ricochets back on you. So you don't want to go into a store and rob it and then end up in jail, because you end up worse than you would be otherwise. Now, on the other hand, if you believe we do have an eternal soul, then a whole bunch of questions follow from that. Starting with, well, does what I do while I'm alive have any impact on the future? And if you say no, you can still go back to hedonism, because it's like, this is vacation time. Having this earthly body is vacation time. What happens when I shed this mortal coil after this body's done? What happens next had no bearing on what happened here. So I can do whatever I want to do. Life is my playground to be explored. If I want to be a mass murderer, that's okay, because it doesn't have any bearing on my eternal soul. Now that gets into a lot of logical problems, a lot of Occam's razor type of problems. On the other hand, you can say, well, this life is a trajectory to what happens next. That's kind of the Christian type of thing, or kind of the basic religion thing. How we act now has an impact on what happens later. If I'm good now, I'll be rewarded later. And if you go down that path, now you have a whole bunch of different ideas of, well, do I want to do Buddhism, Hinduism? Do I want to create my own thing? Do I want to do this? What do I choose? And I think there's a very good argument for choosing Christianity, for choosing Jesus. Why? Because if he was resurrected, that gives more evidence to what he said is the ultimate truth, with a capital T truth, because if he said he was the creator incarnate and he proved it, he demonstrated by coming back from the dead, that's pretty good reason to think that maybe he's telling the truth. And then there's external evidence, especially the Shroud of Turin and the Soldarium of Oviedo. Two things. And then there's evidence supporting those things, that the Shroud and the Soldarium are actual things from Jesus's burial. And let's say they are real. Let's say it is the burial cloth, and let's say it is the face cloth. And that means they are used to further prove that Jesus was resurrected, if Jesus was resurrected, wouldn't that be the safest bet? Wouldn't that be the safest bet on how to direct your life? Do what he said. Do what he said God said, which is, if you believe in him, you will have everlasting life. And believe in him would be to follow what he told you, to follow his commandments. If you follow his commandments, you'll have everlasting life. Wouldn't that be the logical, best path to go down, given a choice? And I would say yes. And I would also say we are now out of time. So what not a bevy? It's not what you know, it's who you know. What not a bevy? Keep in contact with Lucy and find out what's happening with the birth. With that, we're going to say Shivas and Shalom. Shiva and Om. I say Shivas and Shalom. Scotch and peace. Om.